Hello, I am Peter Okwacha. Welcome to Focus on Africa. Our top stories. As fears of the coronavirus spread, the number of cases passes a significant landmark. There are now over 100,000 infected people worldwide.
And I'm Chichi Zundu, live in Dakar, where I can give you an update on coronavirus cases across the continent.
We'll hear from the African families caught up in the ongoing migrant crisis on the Mediterranean island of Lesbos. Also on the program, feeding the body or feeding the mind. That's the dilemma facing many Zimbabwean parents as the country's economic meltdown means they're struggling to pay their kids' school fees.
I'm Lisa Marie Mishtak, live from London's South Bank Centre. Ahead of International Women's Day, I've been speaking to some African women who are championing gender equality.
And in sports, despite a confirmed case of the coronavirus in Tunisia, the first of the second leg matches of the quarterfinals in the African Champions League kicks off in less than 2 hours. Thanks for joining us here on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. The number of coronavirus cases worldwide has passed the 100,000 mark. The World Health Organization is warning governments that now is not the time for excuses in taking measures to halt the outbreak. In Africa, the threat remains while the numbers of cases are still relatively small. To date, there are 40 infections across the continent. Algeria still has the highest number with 17 cases. 12 new cases have been reported on a Nile cruise ship in Egypt. Those who tested positive on the boat did not show any symptoms. Cameroon has confirmed its first case. According to the health ministry, it's a Frenchman who arrived in the capital Yaoundé nearly 2 weeks ago. He's tested positive and is now in quarantine. And Sao Tome and Principe has issued a travel ban on people coming in from China, South Korea, Italy, Iran, Nigeria, Algeria and Senegal. Well, Senegal currently has the highest number of confirmed cases of coronavirus in sub-Saharan Africa. 3 are French nationals who traveled to the country, and the 4th is a British woman who arrived from London. They're being treated in the capital, Dakar. And our correspondent, Chichi Izundu, joins us now from there. Chichi, any more information on these 4?
Well, what we do know is we managed to speak to the professor that has been treating all 4 cases, and he says that they are confident with the recovery and progress they're making so far. We know that they are in isolation at the Fan Hospital here in central Dakar and that they are being looked after. The professor also said that they are trying their hardest to get the kind of equipment that the WHO keeps telling governments to get. He says they took delivery just this afternoon, today, of a chest x-ray to be able to check people's breathing and respiratory systems if they are tested for the virus. They say that they're increasing the capacity of isolation rooms just in case the virus spreads. But effectively, they are concerned. They are worried about mass gatherings, in particular when it comes to religious festivals or sporting festivals, because they are concerned that it will be the fire that spreads the disease.
And what about this one confirmed case in Cameroon, Chichi? Just how much do we know about it?
Well, what we do now know is there's actually been a second confirmed case in Cameroon. As you said earlier, the first was of a 58-year-old French national. We now know the second was in close contact with that first French national, and they've both been put in quarantine in Yaoundé in a hospital. Now, the government in Cameroon are urging people that if you have been anywhere to any of the other infected countries, they've set up a national hotline and they want people to contact them so that they can also contain the spread of the virus.
Okay, our correspondent Chichi Zundu joining us there from Dakar. Thank you very much. Well, the World Health Organization has been telling countries to urgently set up isolation units in preparation for any potential cases. And Kenya has done just that. BBC Africa Health reporter Dayo Yusuf went to see it and sent this report.
If preparedness had a face, this would be it, at least according to health officials in Kenya. Mbagathi General Hospital, just a few minutes drive from the city center in Nairobi, now has a capacity to take care of at least 120 patients in case coronavirus is confirmed in the country. We are talking of many beds set up. We're talking of equipment for respiration, equipment for resuscitation. This is the ICU department of the Mbagathi Isolation Center in Nairobi. And according to the minister, it's not just here in Nairobi, they're planning to expand this across various centers in the country.
And the county governments, through their respective governors, have been tasked also to ensure that necessary isolation wards in all level 4 and level 5 hospitals are set up and ready for use by the 15th of this month. Over the next couple of days, we will be mobilizing support for the county governments. We will be sending additional support from the national government of about 5,000 additional personnel.
After the president issued an executive order to activate this isolation center at Mbagathi, it took officials here just 1 week to set this place up, and now they're saying the doors are open and ready to receive any confirmed coronavirus infections in the country, and they can start treatment. As of today, Friday, March 6th, Kenya has got no single confirmed coronavirus infection. However, the government has set up emergency response unit as well as extra screening at all entry points, including airports and all border towns.
Dayo Yusuf reporting there. Let's take a quick look at other stories making the headlines across Africa and the rest of the world now. Israel and the Palestinian Authority have decided to put the city of Bethlehem under quarantine after 7 people were diagnosed with the coronavirus there. No one will be allowed to leave or enter the city until further notice. The move comes after a rare consultation between Israeli and Palestinian officials. The Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem has also been closed as a precaution. 2 suicide attackers riding a motorcycle have blown themselves up outside the American embassy in Tunis, killing a policeman and injuring 5 others. It's the most serious attack there in recent months. The latest attack comes despite a state of emergency imposed in the North African nation in 2015, following a string of bloody assaults claimed by the Islamic State group. Ethiopia has launched a campaign to raise funds for the construction of the giant dam on the River Nile, the source of significant regional tension. People have been asked to use their mobile phones to send money to the $5 billion project. The authorities are trying to tap into public anger over what's seen as US pressure on Ethiopia to sign an unfavorable deal. Scores of West African migrants caught up in the European migrant crisis are languishing on the Greek island of Lesbos. Tensions continue to escalate between Greece and Turkey about what to do with tens of thousands of migrants and refugees fleeing conflict in Syria, Afghanistan and surrounding regions. Last night, 42 people arrived on one boat, mainly women and children, the first boatload for several days. There has been local hostility towards the new arrivals, with Greek coast guards firing rubber bullets into the air to try and stop them landing. The BBC's Jean Mackenzie sent this report.
We're on the north coast of Lesbos at the moment. You can see Turkey just over the sea there, a few miles away. And last night these people came over on a rubber dinghy. There's a dozen or so children here, and the youngest is a baby who's just under 1 year old. Now, they've had to sleep outside overnight. They were kept here by Greek authorities. They weren't moved to the main camp here on the island, which has space for 3,000 people, but is currently home to 20,000. They've told us about the journey they had over here yesterday afternoon. The Greek Coast Guard was repeatedly trying to stop them from arriving, shouting at them at first to turn back, to go back, and then got right up close to the dinghy, try and destabilise the dinghy. A couple of them have been describing it in more detail to us.
They were firing rubber bullets up and besides our boat, the water, and they had hooks. They wanted to hook the driver. We were trying to show them that we have children. They should stop, but they wouldn't. and I was carrying one baby. The hook got her.
He want to get this the boat and he want to kill us. He do to scare us for the go back.
Everyone was scared. The kids were crying, some women were crying, and some guys.
Around 750 people have made it across the sea here to Lesbos in the last week since Turkey opened its borders. Most of them have been taken down to the port area and put on a navy ship. They'll be taken over to the mainland and put in a closed detention centre that's being prepared. Greece has stopped its asylum procedures for a month, so anyone who's arrived in March will not be allowed to claim asylum. The suggestion is that Greece is going to look at sending them back to their countries of origin. At the moment, Greece is trying to do everything it can to prevent people from making this crossing.
This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News with me, Peter Okoche. Still to come on the programme in sports, Kenya's former 1500-metre world champion Elijah Manangol returns to the track after 7 months. I'm Peter Okoche. The top story this hour: the number of coronavirus cases worldwide has passed the 100,000 mark. In Africa, more cases are being found, including 12 on a Nile cruise ship in Egypt and now 2 in Cameroon. Now, yesterday here on Focus on Africa, we heard about pupils in Kenya having to get up incredibly early because schools open at 6:30 in the morning. Today, we turn to Zimbabwe, where the economic crisis, compounded by drought and high inflation, means that thousands of parents are struggling to afford school fees for their children. It's a blow to a country whose education system was once considered a model for the continent. The BBC's Shingai Nyoka reports from Harare.
Low-cost informal schools are on the rise. The UN once ranked Zimbabwe as having one of Africa's best education systems, but after the free basic education policy ended in the 1990s, state schools have become more costly. Parents desperate to get any kind of education for their children are enrolling them in unregistered schools such as these. And in this economic crisis, these institutions have mushroomed in backyards and in homes. These are schools formed by teachers and ordinary people plugging a gap in the market. They offer greater flexibility on payment and are not as strict on attendance or dress code or as overcrowded. This school charges 60 Zimbabwe dollars or $3 a month. But even then, parents are struggling to pay, and enrollment has dropped by a third compared to last year.
Some are failing to pay. Some bring 20 this week, 15 next week, until they finish the fees per month.
This education has its drawbacks: no desks and only one textbook for the teacher. Fees at most state schools more than doubled this year and now cost between $30 to $700 a year. Meanwhile, household monthly incomes have fallen from $68 in 2018 to $44 in 2019. During this time, 20,000 children have dropped out of primary school. As food prices have risen, parents have cut spending on education by a third. Elizabeth Chibanda's food vending business collapsed due to the rising cost of supplies. She could no longer afford school fees. Her 8-year-old daughter has been sent away to live with her grandmother, and her son couldn't begin first grade this year.
She's doing nothing there, but I was ashamed. It's obvious to all she should be in school. With my son, I pretend he is not school age yet.
Zimbabwe's youth literacy dropped 5% between 1992 and 2014. That was compounded by a shortage of schools, about 2,000 according to a government report. The government is now seeking partners to help build more facilities and has warned that it's illegal to turn children away for non-payment of fees. Meanwhile, the legacy and strides made in the years after independence are slowly and visibly being eroded. Shingai Nyoka, BBC News, Harare.
You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. It's now time for some sports, and Victoria is in the house. Take it away.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay.
In just under 2 hours, defending champions Espérance de Tunis and Egypt's Zamalek will meet in their second leg of the Confederation of African Football Champions League quarter-final. Since the first leg last Friday, there's been a bit of controversy. The players and coaches of the reigning African champions Espérance were heavily sanctioned by CAF following abusive behavior in the game. There's also been a confirmed case of the coronavirus in Tunisia. Zamalek are favourites to advance from the tie after winning the first leg in Cairo 3-1. Suhail Khmira has more from Tunis.
A very difficult game for Espérance this evening as they try to recover from a 3-1 loss against Zamalek in the first leg of the CAF Champions League quarterfinals. They've already suffered a defeat and lost the CAF Super Cup title to the same team on February 14th with the same result, but the team are determined this time to pull off a huge accomplishment, to come back, to recover, and to pull off a similar scenario to that of Al Ahly in November 2018. The fans were not very happy about the result. They were upset and they were furious about what they consider to be unjust sanctions by CAF, who have sanctioned their head coach, their assistant coach, and a number of their players following the events of the first leg of the quarter-final. Despite having registered a case of coronavirus in Tunisia, that was not an obstacle for Tunisian fans. That did not hold them back from selling out all the tickets. We are supposed to have a full stadium tonight in Radis, and the fans are determined to support the team all the way throughout the game and have a great show at the stadium.
Well, Kenya's former 1500 meters world champion Elijah Manangoi is back on the track, having just competed for the first time in 5,000 meters at the Athletics Kenya Track and Field Meet in Nairobi. Manangoi, who won the 2017 world title in 1500 meters, sustained an ankle injury in training last September, making him unable to defend his title in Doha. He shared with us his frustrations of not being able to compete in 2019 and where his focus lies now.
Today I'm very happy. He came back finally to the track. I went for long because of injury. I've been out, so it's taken me 7 months. I feel so good because whenever I jump in the track, I feel so good. I've recovered now, so it remains for me to focus. This is the biggest year for me, very important. Yeah, we have Tokyo, we have some very important Diamond Leagues. So I think I have a lot to focus this year.
And that's all the sport for this whole week on Focus on Africa. Peter, back to you.
Many thanks, Victoria. You've done great. Thanks. Now, it's International Women's Day and on Sunday, and events are springing up around the globe. One of those events, the Women of the World Festival, is taking place not too far from our studios on the south bank of the River Thames. The BBC's Lisa Marie Mischak is there for us and sent this report.
Over the next 3 days, talks and debates on a variety of topics from women empowerment to politics, education and access to finance will be taking place here at the Women of the World Festival. But on the sidelines there's a marketplace with over 40 businesses showcasing their goods and services. And one of those businesses that are showcasing is Sierra Leonean brand that's run by Mariatu. So Mariatu, you run the brand Jita's Portal.
Yes, I do.
How important is it for you to showcase your goods here at the festival?
I think it's so important because the beauty of WOW is that it brings together women like myself from diverse backgrounds and with diverse experiences and offers a platform for us to challenge each other and inspire each other through the power of our stories.
You also help empower women. How do you do that?
Through Gita's Portal, which I say is my sphere of influence, we run a campaign that is called Our Stories Can Change the World. And what we do with that is to really capture the diverse stories of women, everyday women that you may meet that do not have the spotlight being shone on them, but who are doing amazing things. And we've used their stories to inspire and empower other women.
Just on the side over here, there's another small business owner, and it's run by Elizabeth Tia Wilson. Elizabeth, you've also been coming to the festival for the last few years. How important is it for your brand to be here?
It's important because I'm a creative. I make everything that I sell. And I've sort of like developed and have a little family of people that come here each year, and so it's actually helped that way. And it's a good event because it shows about it's actually a showcase of black women designers that are here and from the diaspora, so that's really important.
The event coincides with International Women's Day, and its main theme is closing the gender equality gap. The festival itself is now in its 10th year, and it's estimated that it's reached around 2 million people. It's hoped that events like this help give businesses and women the platform to be able to share their stories.
Well, Lisa Marie joins us now live from the festival with one of today's speakers.
Yes, Peter, so I'm joined by British Somali Dr. Layla Hussein, who took part in one of the talks today on mental health. So you work across Africa and in the UK, helping women to get access to mental health services. What would you say are some of the main challenges that women face in terms of accessing those services?
I mean, it varies. So it will be from funding, because literally there aren't any services out there. And I've seen that a lot, especially in my work in Africa. People say to me, it's not we don't want to go to therapy, there just isn't counselling services. But here in the UK, some of the challenges we've seen is actually recognising women have needs such as childcare, they need their transport to be paid. So in my clinic at the Dahlia Project, one of the things that we ensured from early on that we want it to be as accessible as possible by ensuring that their childcare is paid for, we pay for their travel. We even have a runner in our clinic because a lot of the women can't read English or their own language. So a lot of them don't come to therapy, not because they don't want to, they just can't read the address. So we have somebody now who actually collects them at a local Tesco or a petrol station that they recognise. So when we say accessible, that's the kind of accessibility we're talking about.
So as well as helping women get access to mental health services, you're also an anti-FGM campaigner, and you have been for the past 2 decades. How would you say attitudes have changed in terms of people not wanting to be a part or take part in FGM anymore?
Well, one was actually changing the language. I think for a very long time we kept calling it cultural or traditional practice, but now it's recognising that it's actually violence, it's child abuse, it's one of the worst forms of abuse a young woman or a child will ever experience. I think once we change the language, the narrative on how we tackle it has also changed, meaning people's attitudes also changed.
So it's International Women's Day on Sunday, and the theme this year is Each for Equal. What does that mean to you?
I mean, for me, it simply means you make a choice for yourself. You know, unfortunately, especially for women, we still live in a world where our bodies are being decided by a group of men in a room. So for me, that theme usually it means that we are equal and we have the right to choose what we want to be and whoever we want to be.
So you work not just in the UK but across Africa. What would you say are the main differences or the main stigmas that women face in Africa?
I mean, women in Africa have a whole different stigma. I mean, I work specifically with FGM survivors, and again, you know, it's considered to be a social norm. So the stigma is if you don't have this done, then you are not considered to be a woman or not. But what I'm seeing in Africa, though, over and over again, there are, especially in Kenya where I do a lot of my work, there's actually an open conversation about ending patriarchy and ending that system, because that's the only way FGM is actually going to disappear, because we have to end the system that allows it for it to happen in the first place.
Dr. Layla Hussein, thank you so much for joining us. And the event is still ongoing here, so back to you, Peter, in the studio.
Many thanks, Lisa Marie. Thank you very much. Now, just before we go, another look again at our top story. The number of coronavirus cases worldwide has passed the 100,000 mark. The World Health Organization is warning governments that now is not the time for excuses in taking measures to halt the outbreak. In Africa, the threat remains while the numbers of cases are still relatively small. To date, there are 40 infections across the continent. Algeria still has the highest number with 17. 12 new cases have been reported on a Nile cruise ship in Egypt. Those who tested positive on the boat did not show any symptoms. Cameroon and Togo confirmed their first cases of coronavirus on Friday, bringing the number of countries in sub-Saharan Africa hit by the epidemic to 5. Now, don't forget, you can get in touch with me and some of the team on social media. I'm at Okwache. But for now, that's it from Focus on Africa. From me, Peter Okwache, and the rest of the team. Thanks for watching. See you again very soon.